welcome to the Weird Warriors podcast. I'm Max.
I'm Rich.
And on this podcast, we will be focusing on the Weird War Tales comic book series published by DC Comics from 1971 to 1983. On this episode, we're taking a look at Weird War Tales number 70. But first, Rich has a little something to say to you.
Our intel report, Hellhunters, a 5-issue mini by Marvel Comics released in 2025. Now collected in a trade paperback. Of course, all these are almost always eventually collected in a trade paperback. I don't even know why I bring that up anymore. Script by Philip Kennedy Johnson. Art by Adam Gorham. What do you get when you combine a commando, a spy, a spirit of vengeance, a soldier sorcerer supreme, a sidekick, and a certain Canadian mutant with stupendous recuperative powers? The Hellhunters! As U.S. Sergeant Sal Romero is parachuting into Nazi-occupied Europe in 1944, young Nazi officer Felix Bruckner becomes the host for an unspeakable evil. In the aftermath of their violent meeting, Romero is reborn as Ghost Rider 44, who sets out not only to take revenge on Bruckner and the Nazis, but also to save mankind from annihilation. But he won't ride alone, because Sergeant Nick Fury, Peggy Carter, Soldier Supreme Sebastian Zardos, and Captain America are hunting down the demonic Captain Bruckner by his side. But just wait until they meet a certain Bowie knife-wielding killing machine calling himself Logan. Yet when these Hellhunters' methods prove too ruthless for Cap, they accidentally recruit their secret weapon, 15-year-old Bucky Barnes, the most lethal member yet. With the future Winter Soldier on the team and victory in Europe in the balance, will the Hellhunters be enough to face the cosmic Nazi hellspawn known as Kal-El? Kal-El? No.
Yeah, they had me right up until the stupid bad guy name, but whatever.
well, spoiler alert, Zarathos is willing to help them out, no strings attached. So if things are that deep,
yeah, it does sound like an angel name with the AEL at the end. So, spoilers for something I haven't even read.
Yeah, give it a shot, obviously. Another spoiler alert. A possessed Ghost Rider Sherman tank. That was worth it just for the...
Oh, yeah, you did mention that to me when we talked earlier. And yeah, that's already got my attention. So I still have a membership to the Marvel app. I bet this stuff is on there or will be soon.
Yeah,
So
give it a shot. Give it a shot.
We'll do.
Cover detail. Art by Luis Dominguez. Welcome back, sir. 40 cents. Hold the phone. It was 50 last time. Let me check the page count here. Uh-oh. Looks like the bigger, better book days are already over with a 5-cent price hike for 36 cents. They're trying to trick you. It was 50 cents last month for more pages. Didn't trick me. Weird War Tales is red on white on a navy blue background. A terrified red-haired man struggles to stay afloat as a PT boat manned by the skeletal ghosts of the dead bears down on him in front of a full moon. Their uniforms are in shreds, and the closest two are flying off the boat's bow, reaching for the swimmer. Above the title, one reads, "What can you do when the blood boat comes for you?" Cover date, December 1978, date of release September 12th, 1978. Oh, Comics Man, seen on eBay for anywhere between $5 and $20. No Killjoy, take it away, sir.
I can't believe I didn't put this in the script, but I didn't realize it till you read it out loud. What you gonna do, brother, when the blood boat comes for you? I can't believe I missed a chance to put some Hulk Hogan in there. But about the cover, from what I originally wrote, I will say LD back on the WWT right away. We have a possible addition to my collection of foreground fugitives, which I dearly love, even though I admit he's facing the wrong way to strictly meet the requirements that I made up myself. But if my judgment is clouded a little by the return of Luis Dominguez, I simply don't care. Beside that point, which is only important to me, this is a textbook example of LD's mastery of comic book cover composition. Your eyes are captured by our aforementioned floundering foreground figure, drawn back by the swarming spirits toward the boat. And then further back toward the full moon. Depth of field drawing you in and holding you there, folks. The coloring also works to enhance and enforce the effect, going from brighter and warmer up front to darker and cooler as the scene recedes. Class is in session right here.
Luis Dominguez is always a solid number two to do the cover if Mr. Kubert is unavailable. This is his 23rd cover, while Kubert's only done 27 at this point. We haven't seen him solo on the cover since issue 37. Worth the wait. Wispy clouds in front of the full moon, the bow wave of the PT charging towards our helpless boy. The sinister sneer, the spooky soaring specters sailing towards our struggling swimmer. I'm saying S a lot today. Is this a modern take on the Flying Dutchman? There's at least 13 ghosts aboard. Nice touch. I think our boy should just inhale a lungful of water and dive, dive, dive. Has to beat the alternative.
You said solid number two.
Still feeling the reverberations of issue 69 there, aren't we? Anyway, introduction page. Art by our beloved Jerry T. Synopsis. A robed, red-eyed death holds a scythe with both hands as he stares at the reader. Behind him, under a full moon in a green and blue haze. Is there ever anything other than a full moon? Rests classic ships of the line and modern-day battleships and aircraft carriers. Death says...
Men fear the Sargasso Sea, and speak of being lost there forever. But they know not what they say, for it is an ocean beyond the earth that they should fear sailing, the rolling waters of my realm. I am death, and in the end, all men belong to me. Some come here to join my phantom fleet, others dwell elsewhere, but all are victims of my ultimate revenge, the battleground which dooms man, the weird war. Follow me now and learn what it is like.
Just as naval-themed covers are rare in this book, so are naval-themed intro pages. I think whoever scripted this could have gotten an easier nod of recognition from Bermuda Triangle than Sargasso Sea, because this is the 70s, and the only thing we were more worried about than that and Bigfoot was quicksand. A ghost fleet overseen by death? Yes, indeed. The men milling around on deck with their faces in shadow are probably ghosts, too. Keeping up on the good feelings so far.
Okay, well, as for the cultural impact of the Sargasso Sea, may I present The Mystery of the Lizard Men, the debut episode of a little show called Johnny Quest, which first aired on September 18th, 1964, and was in heavy rerun rotation around the time this comic book was published. To bring DC Comics itself into the tangled depths of the Sargasso, we must begin with the 1931 publication of Andre Norton's Sargasso of Space, the title of which was doubtlessly homaged in Adventure Comics number 313, published 1963, and referenced again in Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes number 273, which was published in 1978, the same year as this very issue of WWT. So, perhaps, for those of an age to be writing professionally at the time, the metaphorical resonance of the Sargasso was a bit stronger at the moment than it ended up being as the later decades rolled on. The defense rests and adds an addendum. Space Sargasso, episode 18 of Space Ghost, first aired on November 5th, 1966 as well, and we all know, if you're from a certain time, Space Ghost was being rerun like crazy around this time too. So no doubt I saw that episode. I watched it on YouTube. Even for an episode of Space Ghost, it sucks. So don't bother. Oh, right. I'm supposed to be talking about this one single intro page for an issue of Weird War Tales. Okay, fine. I am split on it. The dialogue written for death aims for moodiness, but lands pretty clumsily. The visuals, however, are of course top freaking tier. So overall, I'll go with a balance of the positive for it. Moving on.
All hail Johnny Quest, the only 14-year-old with a body count. The Blood Boat, 8 pages, script by first time writing anywhere, J.M. DeMatteis. Pencils by Dick Ayers, inks by another first timer, Air Force veteran Dan Adkins. As an aside, DeMatteis got his start in comics doing art and sat down in front of a typewriter later. Synopsis: August 1944, a warm August night in the Pacific. Captain Daniel McGavin and PT-73 are on patrol when one of these sharp-eyed crewmen aboard spots a man struggling in the water. As the boat stops to pick him up, the ocean heaves the briny phantom from the sea onto her decks. Thank you, he stammers. It's been so many days. No food, no water. I feel so weak. Get this man down to Doc Bernstein fast, the captain orders. I'll be in my cabin if I'm needed. But no sooner has McGavin gone to his cabin than the doctor appears at his door. Doc, why aren't you with your patient? Because, Captain, that patient does need a doctor. The rescued man appears in the doorway behind the doctor. I'm Ensign Van Derling of the aircraft carrier Maryland. But the Maryland was sunk days ago by a Japanese sub. It was blind luck that found me thrown overboard, unharmed. And it's only luck that's kept you alive this long. That's why the doctor is going to examine you, Ensign. That's an order. As Van Derling departs, the doc pulls McGavin aside for a personal conversation. I want to talk to you. There's been something that's eating away at you these past few days. You look awful. You've been listless and melancholy. What's wrong, Dan? What's wrong, Joe? What's wrong? This war is what's wrong. All this endless death is what's wrong. We're no longer fresh scrubbed recruits fighting for a glorious cause. We're just little tin wind-up dolls slaughtering a faceless enemy. McGavin punches a bulkhead for emphasis. We're all, Allied and Axis alike, twisted zombies who won't be happy till we've soaked this entire planet in blood. The captain collapses in Bernstein's arms. I can't take it anymore, Joe. Bernstein puts the captain to bed. Get some rest, Dan. Then come over to my cabin later for a drink. Well, I've got to look after Van Derling. Sleep came earlier than expected, but it brought no rest, only fearsome nightmares of a pale Van Derling clutching the bodies of his crewmen. Death is the most beautiful part of life. Rejoice with us, Captain. Sweating, McGavin awakes with a start. Ready for that drink with his friend, the captain gets out of bed and goes to sickbay, only to find it trashed. Bernstein is dead on the deck with 2 wounds in his neck. Before he can fully process what he's looking at, a sudden gut-wrenching scream comes from topside. His own troubles forgotten, concerned solely for the safety of his crew, McGavin races outside to discover 5 more dead crewmen on deck, just like Joe. The night air carries the stench of fear and death. No, this is insane. How could this be happening? Am I still asleep? Or another agonizing scream, and McGavin fights back a wave of nausea as the foulest, most debauched act of violence he'd ever witnessed in the war unfolds before him. Vampire tearing out the throat of crewman Todd, who'd only turned 19 that very day. Van Derling sees the captain and smiles as he casually tosses Todd overboard. No one on the Maryland had time to guess. Not even the real Van Derling. When that Japanese submarine sanker had sank a ghost ship, a ship as dead as this one will shortly be. The vampire's eyes dance hypnotically as he advances on the trembling McGavin. How easy it is for me to sweep through the night sky, descend, devour, and then be gone before dawn. That's why I love this war. It makes men either weak and pitiful, or as cold and as undead as I am. And both ways you are beyond resisting me. The vampire's speech is cut short by a double-fisted blow by McGavin across the face. There follows a dizzying chase that leads back to Doc Bernstein's cabin. McGavin picks up a pipe to defend himself, and the vampire chuckles. Surely you don't think that will save you, Captain. Surrender to me. Resistance is futile. McGavin attacks instead. No! I won't forfeit my humanity to me. I'm a man, damn it, not some human thing. I will not become like you. Van Derling swats the pipe out of McGavin's hands and grabs his collar, pulling the captain close to his slavering jaws. I was once like you, Captain, centuries ago, but I'm glad to be what I am now. It's the only way to survive a war. Below decks, neither of them can see the periscope of a Japanese submarine stalking them, or the deadly salvo it unleashes. PT-73 is obliterated. This time, the vampire is unable to fly coldly off into the night. A piece of flying wooden debris had pierced his undead heart, and the dawn grants him his final rest in cleansing fire. Dusk 3 days later. The same Japanese submarine returns to these waters on patrol. Through the periscope, Captain Kurohawa sees 3 survivors clinging to wreckage of the sunken PT boat. They waste no time servicing and taking the Americans prisoner. Shortly, the captain is interrogating the 3 sailors, McGavin among them. You and your men managed to survive for 3 days. 3 days is all it takes for vampires to rise from the dead. Fangs sprout from the mouths of the 3 Americans as they attack their Japanese captors. After all, it's the only way to survive war. We won't mention what happens 3 days after that. Killjoy History Minute. The Maryland was not an aircraft carrier, but a battleship. In this time period, battleships were named for U.S. states. Carriers were named after historic naval vessels or battles. Maryland was slightly damaged during the attack on Pearl Harbor. She stayed in the Pacific throughout the war and was struck by a torpedo and 2 kamikazes in combat. She was decommissioned in 1947 and scrapped a dozen years later. And I can't believe it took me as long as it did to catch this. If Van Derling bursts in the flames at sunup the next day, why didn't McGavin and the other 2 crewmen? Or were they dead and the sun wouldn't do its cleansing until they were reborn? Axe? To continue, the things you discover when you randomly check oddball info on a comic story. The real PT-73 was a 78-foot Higgins boat assigned to Motor Torpedo Boat Squadron 13, which saw service in the Aleutians in the Southwest Pacific Theater. On 15 January 1945, it ran aground and was destroyed to prevent it from falling into enemy hands. PT-694 was a 72-foot Type 2 Vosper MTB motor torpedo boat, a British design built under license in the U.S. for export to Russia. The war ended in August 1945 before the boat could be sent to the Soviet Union. The boat was then purchased by Howard Hughes and used as a chase boat for the one and only flight of the Spruce Goose aircraft. The boat was then sold to a TV studio where it became PT-73 for the program McHale's Navy. PT-73 was later sold to the mayor of Hawthorne, California, and converted to a sport fishing boat. It was later destroyed when it broke loose from its mooring near Santa Barbara and washed up on the beach during a storm. McHale's Navy ran for 4 seasons in ABC, starring Ernest Borgnine, from 1962 to 1966. It took me way too long to sit down and watch the complete run of that show several years ago. 3 seasons took place in the Pacific Theater in World War II, with the 4th taking place in the Mediterranean. Mr. DeMatteis was obviously a fan. Well played on your first appearance. This more than makes up for the Killjoy.
Okay, so as for the vampire thing, myths vary wildly, even if you're trying to stick to them, which these guys generally don't. Day walking vampires abound in this series, but it could very well be that they weren't eligible to be toasted by the sun until they rise as a vampire, because before then they're just a corpse undergoing transformation. So I could absolutely buy that interpretation. I have other problems with the vampires system, uh, that, the vampire's pattern of behavior in this story that I'll get to in my actual CNC. I'll also mention here what I couldn't when I wrote the script because it hadn't happened yet. We recently watched a vampire movie that's all the rage right now, a movie called Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler on a streaming service named after me, which is dumb. But I think they're going back to HBO Max or something. But that movie also very skillfully incorporates social commentary in with the metaphor of the vampire. The bad guy makes a few salient points when he's trying to convince everyone to give up their humanity in that movie. So, highly recommended for many reasons. All right, so commercial for the Sinners is over. My CNC beginneth. I'll say the visual shift in tone from this issue's cover and intro page to the opening page of this story is something. Even taken on its own, page one of this tale looks a bit retro even by 1978 standards, but you know me, I like it. Our helmeted host's ghastly green outline and general rendering reminds me of classic TV animation. But maybe I just have Johnny Quest on the brain right now, and who could blame me? Activating my hindsight vision powers, I gotta say the intro text in the splash panel just retroactively reeks of the themes of spirituality and moral philosophy that will prove to be prevalent in JMD's solo writing throughout his career and to this day. He didn't get too deep with when he was working with Giffen on the JLI. That was more ho ho. Getting into the nitty gritty though, I think the crew should have been tipped off right away when the hapless survivor is just heaved onto the deck of the boat in the first panel of page two. It just looks like the ocean itself lifted the guy all the way up onto the boat. I don't know. I don't know how much of a long shot that would be. That's not my thing to Killjoy. So that is a hell of a shot by the sea, and it can have happened more than once in those sailors' lives, I'd imagine. In panel 6 of that same page, Van Derling's profile has a very Don Heck style look to it, which never puts me in a bad mood. Page 3, however, puts a damper on all that by just being really visually boring throughout. Some non realistic coloring might have helped, as this page just kinda looks like a wall of tan shirts. It's too bad because the dialogue on the page deserved better, especially in panels 4 and 5, where we get even more pointed examples of JMD's preferred themes when, our guy has his breakdown there before collapsing into the arms of his buddy. Page 4 rebounds nicely with the varied tones and panel borders of the dream sequences, as well as the red, green, and orange backgrounds in panels 3, 4, and 5. Page 5 is even better in this regard, with some good use of pop-out panels, varied coloring throughout, and the red background used for the otherwise not very dramatic-looking vampire attack in panel 5. Page 6 is pretty great too, except I couldn't help, as I mentioned before, but nitpick the vampire's plan here. Descend at night, devour, and be gone before the dawn? To where? You're in the open ocean. Why not just stay inside the boat? I know this one got sunk, but he doesn't talk about that as part of his plan. Why not just stay inside the boat you just ravaged until another one comes along? This bit might have been better left unexplained there, DeMatteis. However, the rest of that panel into the next one gives us yet another pointed pontification on JMD's metaphysical musings. We have a precognitive Star Trek reference in page 1 of page 7, resistance being futile, suggesting that maybe TNG owes JMD a little screenwriting cash, because maybe that's where someone picked up that line. But I suppose that ship has sailed. Or it's exploded, as on panel 1 of page 8. lodged a very story-length convenient piece of sharpened wood into the heart of our antagonist. The fire on the water display provided by the vampire's burning corpse in panel 2 is a nice balance for that storytelling convenience. And in panel 7, we end things with another very J.M.D. Mateus rumination on the effects of war on the human soul. I mean, overall, the story gets top marks from me.
The smallest aircraft carriers the U.S. Navy operated during World War II were escort carriers with a complement of 890 men. Fleet carriers carried 2,600. Color me impressed if Van Derling could plow through a whole crew like that when he called the sunken Maryland a ghost ship, page 6, panel 3. The Japanese commander shouldn't act surprised that McGavin and co. lasted 3 days adrift. There are countless stories from World War II alone of men lasting weeks. PT boats were relatively tiny, with a crew of about 14. The thought of a vampire chasing around a boat that's less than 80 feet long certainly gives me pause anyway. Our A-list Air Force artists do a bang-up job on this Navy tale. We literally start off with the tragic plot device of having Today being one crewman's 19th birthday, why didn't you just pull out a letter from your girl from home while you're at it? You just signed your death warrant in pop culture. Speaking of death warrant, page 5. Everybody! The bodies stacked up, the terror on the captain's face. Then our evil vampire on page 6, panel 4. Dark hair, pale skin, long nails. Run away! We are 3 for 3 in the early running of issue 70. Next, Death's Double Agent. 1 page. Script by first timer Mike Barr. Pencils by only timer Jerry Bingham. Inks by Romeo Tanghal. 1943, occupied France. An Allied agent dives into the trees, dodging enemy fire. The German officer screams, "Fire! Fire! He must not escape!" But escape he does, and the German orders his men to return to base. But the officer hides a secret. The escape was perfectly planned. The Allied agent will meet with the French resistance. Once he meets with their leader, Fantôme, the agent will obey his subconscious brainwashing and kill him. And that is exactly what happens. Other members of the resistance immediately gun the agent down. Dying, Fantôme laments, How? How could he have known I'm an Italian agent? I took Fantôme's place and would have led you to your deaths. But how did that damned Allied agent know? CNC. Almost missed it. Phantom, the best aha moment of the whole book. But come on, it's hard enough to make a 2-pager work. 1, this is a waste of space. And the only time we see Jerry Bingham, the first panel, we see the agent's hand breaking the panel border as he dives for cover, which sells his flight. You know what? Screw it. I'll just paste the whole page of the album. I have to give this an overall thumbs down. If you're going to tease me with a 1-pager, make it a battle album or something.
Yeah, this one is a bit tragic, as the work that's here is pretty great. Mike Barr squeezes a decent script into this solitary page, and the theme of death's indifference to all of our clever planning manages to get through, but this still ends up feeling like more of a pitch than an actual story. I mean, I give it pretty high marks for effort within the constraints they were given, I guess. I mean, I liked the host and logo work, and as Rich was alluding to, that first panel is dope. But yeah, this is a missed opportunity. They shouldn't have limited these guys to 1 page. I mean, it's Mike W. Barr, who wrote Batman and the Outsiders. Come on. And Jerry Bingham, who is a fantastic artist, and you throw him a page. What, did they just stop by for lunch? All right, so that one out of the way, I'm going to carry us down the road to the second and final full-page story in this issue, and it is called The Lonely Road to Life. It's a 7-pager, scripted by Jack Olek, and art by last timer Alex Nino. Synopsis for this little one goes like this. Somewhere in space, Earth's fighting armada fought to repel an invasion from a distant galaxy. And even then, Moore was looking out for himself. Moore, veer off! You're cutting right in front of us! This is only a training exercise. Use your head! I am, Wyndham. Our objective is that target drone, isn't it? So if any of us is going to get it, I'm going to be that one. I'm going to be a big man in the fleet someday, and a good score will make that day come a lot sooner. Moore fires and cheers when the drone is destroyed. Moore was a braggart and a glory hunter, but at the start, when his and the other 2 training ships had landed, who could have guessed where his search for glory would lead? Wyndham had to restrain Cooper from giving Moore the beating he richly deserved, before the 3 lieutenants were ordered to report to the commanding officer. Moore was ecstatic to be assigned to the fleet, believing that training was over at last, but the commander reined him in. Training is never over in the Space Fleet, and I've had a bellyful of your bragging. The service doesn't need loud mouths, but it does need pilots. So you 3 will join the fleet, but I warn you, one more grandstand play and I'll nail your hide to a wall. Understood? The navigation exec will supply you with star charts and tell you where to rendezvous with the fleet. There'll be a 3-man ship waiting for you at 0800. Now get out! In the morning, Wyndham and Cooper arrived at their ship to discover Moore already at the controls. Orders, chum. I guess the old man knows a real pilot when he sees one, eh? You'll be navigating and Cooper will just be along for the ride. Or do you two have some objections? Objections? Inwardly, two men seethed with contempt as the ship launched. But how could they object to their orders? A slim needle of man-made metal hurtled through the vastness of space until the ship abruptly began to buck like a steer in a rodeo. Moore cried out, "The controls! They've gone haywire! I can barely keep on course. There's something dead ahead. We'll have to set down on it. See if you can identify it in your star charts. Send a distress call." "Mayday! Mayday! This is Space Transport 4291. We have engine trouble. We'll attempt landing on planetoid X62." Cooper couldn't confirm contact with rescuers was established before Moore was forced to land the ship that soon shook itself apart. Braggart or not, somehow Moore made the landing, and for a little while, three men could breathe again. But not for long. The ship had been reduced to a pile of junk. Controls, radio, main drive, everything was dead. But a bigger surprise awaited them when they extracted themselves from the wreckage. Holy smoke! This place looks just like the Earth must have back in prehistoric times. And those things, they look like some kind of dinosaurs. "Forget the history lesson," Moore replied. "They're coming right at us, and they look hungry. Blast them!" Weapons fire from the three killed the two attacking creatures. But they knew the noise their crash made would attract more of them. They load up with all the supplies they could carry and move away from the Hulk. Survival! From the beginning, it was Moore's only thought. So the three men ran until they could run no more. They were being pursued, and Moore had an idea. "Way I remember it, dinosaurs always lived in jungles and swamps. Our only chance is to find open ground. If anyone heard the mayday and a ship comes looking, that's where they'll land. If there is any open land on this chunk of space garbage, but we don't have a choice." The three men continued their trek through the jungle with the creatures following. Finally, they had to stop and get some rest. Wyndham and Cooper passed out immediately as Moore stood guard. But Moore soon woke Cooper up. "Come with me. There's something I've got to show you. It's important." Two men followed a trail to a clearing where a huge dinosaur was sniffing the ground. "Good Lord," Cooper whispered. "You must be insane. If that thing spots us, we've got to warn Wyndham." "Do we, Cooper? I don't think so. I've got a better idea, and you're going to help me carry it out." Moore slammed his blaster across the back of Cooper's head, knocking him unconscious. Only a coward in the grip of terror, half mad with fear, would have done what Moore did. "Moore!" Cooper groaned as he came to. "What are you doing? The dinosaur's coming this way." "I know. I heard it while I was standing guard. It's hunting us, but when it finds you, it will stop." "You, you're leaving me here? For God's sakes, why? You can't!" "Can't I? I told you I look out for number one. We can't kill every monster in this blasted jungle, but this way I gain time. Goodbye and good luck. You'll need it." But what luck can there be for a man who lies bound and helpless, waiting for death? Wyndham jolted awake at Cooper's scream as Moore ran back. "A dinosaur!" Moore exclaimed. "We heard it moving around and went out to take a look. It got Cooper. I tried to help him, but my gun jammed. Come on, we've got to get away from here." This time, two men fought their way onward through dense, almost impenetrable underbrush, but that too was to change. On the far side of a river is wide open country. If a rescue ship landed anywhere, it would be there. They were in no shape to swim across, so a raft was built, and the two survivors were soon paddling across the water. Halfway across, a long-necked creature with massive fangs surfaced nearby and looked at an easy meal. Wyndham pulled out his weapon, but it was empty. "Fire, Moore!" he cried. "Fire!" But Moore saw a rescue ship overhead and made a different decision. "No, I'm not going to die when I can buy time with your life the way I bought it with Cooper's." He knocked Wyndham overboard with a blow from his oar. Moore was alone, and if a man tried desperately to escape a horrible death, what did that matter? He was still alive. No one would ever know. They'd even think he was a hero, a big man. But as Moore set foot on the far shore, he was stricken to see the ship turn back without landing, and he pleaded in vain for it to come back. Aboard the departing vessel, the crewmen were confused about their commander's actions. "You're going to leave him, sir? I don't understand. Can you think of a better punishment for a man like that? I only wish we could have gotten here in time to save Wyndham and Cooper. Don't you see? I never dreamed when I ordered their ship rigged so that they'd have to land on that planetoid that it would end as it did. But Moore deserves what he's getting. He wanted to live so badly that he was willing to kill to stay alive. He'll never know that we were watching every move he made on our viewing screen right from the start. Just as it's a pity he'll never know that his landing there was just another training exercise, a survival test." Ironic, eh? But then Moore had always said that he'd be a big man someday, and now he was. As the vessel flew away, a flock of flying beasts descended toward the marooned Moore. All right, we got no killjoy on this sci-fi story as usual, and I'll kick off the CNC here. All right, so unfortunately, I gotta say, Alex Nino was really burning up his good credit for me, or with me, in these later offerings of his. First of all, the host, in quotation marks, and intro text work is lazy enough to make me wish they just hadn't bothered. Now, the logo for the story is creatively lettered. It looks pretty cool, gotta give it marks, but the splash panel that it's hovering over, I mean, it's cool looking, but as a piece of storytelling, it almost fails completely. Page 3 is probably the best one in the story, in my opinion, showing a glimmer of interesting page design that seems invested in storytelling as well as aesthetic appeal. But the pages to either side of it are just too cramped with stiff and uninteresting dialogue to make me want to celebrate very much. It's all very repetitive, too. Where the previous story, our one-pager, likely should have been a few pages longer, this offering could have benefited from dropping a few and handing them back to the story before it. That still wouldn't have saved anyone, though, from the ending of this tale. This is a training exercise. You could never have dreamed of this outcome. I think anyone could see what kind of guy Moore was, and you didn't need to go to all of this expense of human and dinosaur lives, not to mention equipment, resources, and time, just to confirm what any moron could have already told you. With leadership like this, it's no wonder you end up with guys like Moore. Blah.
Oleg and Nino teamed up in our last issue of WWT and had much the same problem. Oleg is a bit too verbose, and last timer Nino is a bit too frenetic, although both are better than before. Our spacey splash page is a vintage effort. I find the black thruster trails in the story an interesting coloring choice. Our first look at the dinosaurs on the last panel of page 3 don't look too threatening, but we all know about deceiving looks. The shadow of the oncoming dinosaur and the helpless Cooper on page 5, panel 5 is brilliant, and something I admittedly missed the first few times I read the story. I like all the confrontation with the sea beastie panels on page 6, especially the last one with poor Wyndham about to go down the hatch. And the first one on page 7 when he does go down the hatch, the arms still outside the mouth. But God, the 2 panels of the commander's head on page 7, horrifying. Reminded me a bit of MODOK. Especially the second one where the head completely fills the panel and your eyes are drawn right to the mouth. Those eyeball creatures in the last panel represent the last thing we're going to see Nino do in WWT, to which I say, well done. High note. The story itself is decent, if a bit old hat. Lots of tales out there of the protagonist not knowing it was a drill/exercise and doing something truly horrible. The commander is a piece of work. I sabotaged their ship, which resulted in a crash landing that resulted in the loss of the entire crew. Whoops! Being in the Army, I know all about realistic training and accidents happen, but I have to think someone above him may want some answers. Once Cooper got eaten, the ship should have swept in, rescued Wyndham, and arrested Moore, if they were watching the whole time. Moore is probably going to be eaten in the next few minutes, and I say, good. Jerk. This one grew on me as I did the scripting. For all its faults, I will still give it the nod, which takes us to the APO Weird War Tales letters page. And I'm going to hop on to the first letter in said letters page from Holden McCormick, 454 East 84th Street, New York, New York, 10028. Dear Paul, Weird War Tales number 65 was far better than number 64. Both script and art were exciting. The cover was well drawn, as are all of Kubert's efforts, yet I did not like the cover idea. Too much of the page was taken up by the tank, and there was no background. Also, I'm in favor of using skeletons on the covers. Most other readers have protested this use in the past, but the skeleton symbolizes death, a significant part of the Weird War. The intro page was well drawn, but you shouldn't use them every issue, as you only have 17 pages of art. The Last Cavalry Charge had almost everything one could want in a script: good dialogue, good description, and up to a certain point, a good plot. When the Major became separated as a living horse and a dead man after the explosion, the story became ridiculous. Try to avoid these types of happy endings. They're uncharacteristic of the Weird War. Death's Head had an excellent script and was truly exciting and had a good ironic ending. No complaints there. Brillinati's art was fairly well done, but Carrillo's effort was infinitely more exciting and detailed. I also enjoy the fact that Last Cavalry Charge flowed into Death's Head so well. And Paul responds with, as you can see by this issue's cover, we have placed our familiar Death's Head symbol up near the logo on a regular basis. So even if there isn't a skeleton in the cover scene, he'll still be on the cover. Speaking of covers, it also seems worthy of note that this issue marks the return of Luis Dominguez, who illustrated many noteworthy Weird War covers a few years ago, as I already said. Joe Kubert was busy supervising the graduation of the first class of students from his school. Luis kindly stepped in to pinch hit. We don't mind Joe's absence, though, since we suspect that several of those graduates will end up in these pages someday soon, to put it mildly. And my overall response to all this was I didn't care for the intro page of that issue, with the dialogue going right down the middle of the page. The Last Cavalry Charge was a happy ending. If you say so. Dude got killed by a hand grenade and is now a horse slave for eternity. That sounds kind of weird wordish to me.
Okay, so the letter I picked starts out like this. Paul, when I first set eyes on Weird War Tales number 65, I knew I was in for a treat. Joe Kubert has a talent for making covers stand out among all others. Yeah, yes indeed, he does. Of course, as you can see, I bought the comic. Or stole it. How are we supposed to know? Whoever had the idea of combining ancient Greece with modern warfare has got to be number one on my list. Brilliancy. Sheer brilliancy. Bulinati and Kupperberg didn't do too bad either. The Last Cavalry Charge was a sensational story. It had a hero and badmen with a beautiful sorceress to even the score. The plot was weird, yet human. To put the cherry on the pie, Jack Olick bewildered us with Death's Head, a masterpiece. I can't complain about the artwork either. Keep it up. And that comes from Mike Migliore, 232 Street, so 232nd Street, Queens, New York, 11426. And Paul Levitz's response starts off like this. We don't remember who came up with the idea of interweaving ancient Greece with modern warfare, but we are pleased that the readership seemed intrigued by this combination. So we went ahead and went one step further and bought a book-length Weird War tale that takes place entirely in ancient Greece. It's a special story scripted by Steve Englehart, and if current plans hold up, it'll appear 2 or 3 months from now. Also in the works is a tale of prehistoric terror by Jack Harris and Alfredo Alcala. That one got me excited right there. And a unique extra-length tale by Bob Conager. What really stood out for me about this letter was some of the dialogue, some of the vocab of Mr. Migliore here. The use of brilliancy and badmen, that's a compound word, B-A-D-M-E-N, just one word, in Mike's letter struck me as a little odd and archaic. So I did some digging, and well, they may be just that as far as word choices go, but they do show up in the dictionaries out there. Brilliancy is misused by Mike as it's supposed to refer specifically to brightness of light or vividness of color, but badman or badman, used as a compound word, was somehow a real thing. used mostly to refer to bandits and outlaws of the early U.S. Western frontier, so slightly misused here as well. And then the turn of phrase, to put the cherry on the pie. Has anyone ever said that before? Isn't it the icing on the cake? I mean, just a fascinatingly weird bunch of vocab going on in there. So that stood out for me. But next, since we are done with the letters page, we're going to another happy addition to this series that's popped up recently, a little comic book strip called Hembeck.
Okay, so Hembeck, panel one. You got Batman going a full blown swing and connecting with the Joker, who goes flying across panel two, hits the wall, panel three, and then sitting on the ground from the wall, looking at the viewer, going, "The man can't take a joke." So yak 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 yak. Like, okay, 4 pager, Hembeck. Okay, fine, great. Moving on.
Okay, that might be all you saw, but when I read this four-panel masterpiece, I saw a little bit more. For me, this unintentionally and prophetically juxtaposes the yet to happen over grimification that would befall Batman in the wake of Frank Miller's excellent Dark Knight Returns series from 1986, as later writers in DC Comics in general took all the wrong lessons from that miniseries' success, with a punch first and ask no questions, more dark than detective Caped Crusader on display, and a by 1978 fully fading incarnation of the Joker, the somewhat silly clown prince of crime, who was even then being supplanted by the strictly psychopathic serial slaughterer that we are all still stuck with today. I am certain that's what Hembeck intended here, and nothing anyone can say will convince me otherwise. All right, so our very necessarily deep dive into Hembeck over. We're going to move on to the next part of the show, which is our spotlighted ads for this issue. And I found one that was a little deeper than it might first have seemed. All right, so my spotlighted ad is we're going to focus on the top half of a full page Hostess cupcakes and Twinkies cakes ad, and it's not one of those. It's not a Hostess Twinkies theater with some superheroes or whatever. This has on the top panel of this ad, it says free wacky TV show cards. And you got a kid holding a bunch of trading cards. You got a close up of some other kid's hand holding a few of them. And up front, you can see Barnaby Bones with a skeleton wearing a hat walking down a path under a full moon. There's another kid in the background rolling on the ground in laughter, looking at one of the cards, and it says, 3 free cards on specially marked Hostess family packs, 48 cards to collect and trade. On the front, wacky titles and color pictures of well-known TV shows. On the back, giggly TV riddles and fascinating facts. Offer good September 4th to October 21st, 1978, or while supplies last. So, standing on its own didn't look like much, but I actually did a little research on this thing. There's going to be a link that we'll provide that I'm opening right now, and I found a page that lists all 48 cards, and you can zoom in on them. You can read the front and the back, and the wacky TV facts actually seem pretty historically interesting. Like I'm just clicking on number one on the list, and it's the Walnuts, which is a terrible attempt at doing a parody title for the Waltons. On the back, though, it says wacky TV fact: the first transatlantic telecast by satellite was a picture of an American flag sent to Europe on July 10th, 1962. I did not know that. And underneath it, to balance that educational content out, is the wacky TV riddle. And it says, how did the mini TV beat up its owner? And the answer is assault with batteries. Get it? So it goes on like that for 48 more cards, and you can check them all out. I'm not going to ruin too many of the surprises here, but like the walnuts, that's probably one of the worst ones on the list, but none of them are high comedy here, but still a lot more interesting than I would have thought. And I would have loved to have a set of these back in the day when I was 7 years old. I think they were written perfectly for that audience, and the art on them doesn't look too bad either. It's overall a surprisingly decent effort. I did not expect that looking into this. I was like, I wonder if there really were 48 cards. Yeah, and here they all are. So that's my ad for the issue.
Almost grabbed the Sergeant Rock Daily Planet Extra for Sergeant Rock 323, but decided to dive into the tall grass, into the advertisers' direct ads instead, since there's almost always something. See the Miracle of Birth, $6.98 postpaid with 5 quail eggs, $5.25 without eggs. You get the new clear plastic dome chick hatcher with 6 quail eggs, available year round. And Egg Hatcher's Guidebook, complete, nothing else to buy. Send check or money order today. GOF Manufacturing Co., Department CNC Box 1552, Savannah, Georgia 31402. There's a crappy drawing of a lidded plastic bowl that has chicks of some type in it. Hey, with the price of eggs right now so high, maybe quail will catch on. Anxiety, etc. Basic help, consolation, GN7A, 12 Spring, Chilton, Wisconsin, 53014. What?
Got anxiety? Send an envelope to us. What's the worst that could happen?
That's got to be the vaguest ad we've had in the entire run of the show. Perhaps my favorite, twice as much putty for half price. What a bargain. You get 25 grams mint, flesh color, only $1. Will not melt nor stain, non-toxic. Glow color, only $1.25. You can see and play with this in the dark. You can stretch it, pull it apart, bounce it sky high, form funny shapes, lift off your favorite comic strips, and even make secret codes. Plus 25 cents postage and handling, cashier check or money order to send to Tampico, PO Box 765, Amityville, New York 11701. And there are these two horribly drawn figures wearing checkered pants of a girl with ponytails stretching some putty and a boy with raised arms in celebration. Both are inside colored ovals because the world needs knockoff silly putty. Don't do it, kids. Your comics deserve better.
I did that all the time. I gotta admit, but I did it with newspaper comics. I didn't do it with my comic books. I did it with like the Sunday funnies or whatever. Did that constantly. But I got it. I got to call out another classic 1970s into 80s reference baked into that ad. Flesh color, was it? What flesh color might it be? Hmm. All right. So before we dig down, I'll go ahead.
Okay. Two things first. You said the whole flesh color thing. I think Bloom County did a little haha on that with Oliver. He was the brainiac with the glasses and stuff like that, you know. And he was reaching for flesh colored, crayons, and he got like burnt umber or something. So
Yep.
that
And
was,
I won't even mention in our Crayola boxes when I was a kid, there was a certain color red with a one word before that that I'm not even going to say.
it's like you wouldn't think that your crayons would be so politically charged, but to go back to the whole silly putty thing, as I've mentioned a couple times in the show in the past, my grandparents, had this house in Niskayuna that was, never threw anything away. The attic upstairs was not climate controlled, so it was really really hot in summer, really really cold in the winter. And when my dad had his first attempt at not attempt, very successful go at an HO scale layout up there, all the comic books and the newspapers and stuff when they were kids were still up there. It was a neat little place to go hide out and everything when we were visiting my grandparents. And one of the things I found up there one time was a vintage egg of silly putty. And all I'm going to say is, do you know what silly putty turns into after about, 40 years, 50 years of not being in a climate controlled room like that attic was? Rubber cement. Don't ask for
I was going to
details
say it turns into vengeance.
because that was holy Jesus. What a freaking mess.
Nice. Play with it, kids. It's fun. So, hey,
Probably non-toxic.
probably, only one way to find out. So, all right, people, before you eat your 40-year-old silly putty, from the attic. Um, we're going to get to a little section before we give you your last words, and we're going to give our last words on this here comic book.
Bloodboat wins this one going away. True story, I was all set to condemn this one to the bottom half of the pile, but upon further review, I decided to flip the script. Bottom of the top of the pile, though. Enough of the things that initially bothered me on the first go around stopped doing so, or at least lessened. We have an LD cover, a Jerry D intro page, and a hidden pun on the one pager. I couldn't stay mad.
Yeah. All I have to say is the blood boat soon will be taking another chug. The blood boat promises on death for every lug. Yeah, there's no real contest for the crown this time around. And I was far less appreciative of the final story than Rich, but I got enough out of the other bits in this issue, the ads and everything else, to feel like I had an overall good time getting through it. So onward. And onward to what? Onward to the scuttlebutt, the end of the show here where we take care of odds and ends, like mentioning we have a Facebook page. It's the Guess What? Weird Warriors Podcast Facebook page. And it's pretty much the nerve center for anybody who wants to keep up with the show for some reason. We're still offering, although I really don't think we should anymore, something called a Sam Star. You should know what it is. If you don't, that's part of why I'm starting to vote that we don't even bother. Because we have merch. And I'm taking a little negative tilt here, but I feel y'all deserve it. We're going to, if you go to redbubble.com, which very few of you have, you can search the Weird Warriors podcast. You can get our amazingly cool logo that was drawn and designed by Bill Walko himself, Walko of the Hero Business and of Archie Comics and a ton of other things. Get commissions from him at conventions. I have several from Bill and they're amazing, including a kick-ass Blue Devil one. If you do go to redbubble.com and buy a piece of merch with our logo on it, send a picture of that when it gets to you to the Facebook page via Facebook Messenger, you'll get a Sam Star, I guess. All right. So beyond that, I'm also starting another effort on the side here, which I'm going to get back to this week. I'm uploading our episodes to YouTube. Guess what that channel's called? It's the Weird Warriors Podcast YouTube channel. And I've got like 13 or 14 videos up there now, and it's easy enough for even me to do it. So who knows, by the time you hear about this, we may be current. I'm not making any promises, but it could actually happen even with my level of involvement. All right, people? So that is my level of involvement, but someone else isn't done giving things to you. Rich has even more to give you, and that is a very generous teaser for our next episode.
We've been on a crazy run of having a special mission every other episode lately. And that run continues because I like dropping the fan voted special mission in time for Halloween. It was a three-way tie: Anarchy, Swamp Thing, and Where Monsters Dwell. Who won? I ain't telling. Be here next time.
Yeah, nice try, people. All right, so that's it, folks. I'm done yelling at you. I had a good time. I should be in a better mood, but I'm me. So who am I? I'm one of the Weird Warriors. I'm one of the Batlin Bros. I'm one of the hosts of the Weird Warriors podcast, whether you like it or not. And on this podcast, Rich and I promise to make war
No more.